Right, here we are. So just going to do sort of a little update on my LC Racing rally car of what I've done with it and what I've found whilst driving it, and what I don't know. I'm going to try changing different things on it. Whether I'm going in the right direction, I feel I am. If you think I've done it wrong, let us know. Yeah, here we go. Right, so I've basically fitted the buggy centre diff on it with the biggest pinion. Made a top brace out of carbon fibre that I had. Thinned it out because it was a bit wider than that. So I've made it thinner, drilled holes in it so that I get a bit of twist in the chassis, hopefully. After my first couple of runs, love having the adjustable gear, like the adjustable gear in here, because on the original one where it's at the back, I think you can get a 21 tooth pinion, or it maxes out at about a 24, so there's not much adjustment there. I've done some little upgrades for the dust cover. So where's the dust cover? There. So I've cut these holes, which were sort of meant to be cut, I think, for ventilation. So my battery lead comes up through that one and up through that one. So ESC and then the battery. I put these little skirts at the back out of Gorilla Tape. Stops. The reason why I've done this is I went out and tested it out on the road, and little stones were getting in, and that's so close for the buggy diff holder. This gear would not run in this chassis. I had to put little washers underneath. See them down there, just to lift it off by a millimetre. So we got like a millimetre's worth of clearance there now, but bits of gravel getting in. So I've done some little upstands at the front as well at Gorilla Tape, and took them in further, but obviously it clears the rack. Another little update I've done with it, little upgrade, was, and I've cut it round the steering arm. And what I found was, you wouldn't think gravel would, I don't know, maybe it was bouncing up inside the body and then falling down through these holes, I don't know. So I meshed the holes and I went to town on it. I've done the skirts at the back. The other thing I've done is I've used Velcro along the sides, because the sides kept gapping in case gravel was coming up through the sides. But I've put Gorilla Tape along the chassis, like so. And if it wears through here, I'll just peel it all off. And if I can't peel the Gorilla Tape off the back of this Velcro, I'll just stick a new bit of Gorilla Tape along the back of that. And that wraps up round the coarse stuff on the side of this, which pulls it all in tight. But I reckon, personally, the gravel was getting in there and in the front. So although there is still holes at the front, when you put this on, you've got these big holes there, and I can't do nothing about them because the rack travels through them, right? Which leaves you a big hole down there as well. Oh, I expect I've got this come up the wrong way, I don't know. So I've done that. Anyway, no gravel getting in now. I've run it on the track. I've run it outside on the road. No gravel getting in. I was looking into a metal spur. There is two different metal spurs apparently that fit it. Lossy Mini 8, I think. And another one. Someone did message me on the LC Racing page. They replied with what two gears would fit it. But the only trouble is, this is an 81. And the next smaller one that comes with the diff, I don't know, maybe it's, I can't remember how many teeth. It is a lot smaller, but it's still bigger than the stock one. So it gives you that less wild car that it was before. But there was a characteristic that I've noticed. I don't know why my car's like this. Basically, I put 10k in the front and 5k in the rear originally. That's got 30k in it now. But I thought I must have got the diffs muddled up, because the back always felt about the same as the front. So the other day, I had the rear diff apart, put 5k in it, still didn't feel right. So then I dropped it to 3k. It still felt the same, and I thought, what's going on? So I've now dropped it to 1,300 I've put in there, and it's only just changed it a bit, so it must be, the gears must be quite tight in there, because it's not as free, but it is freer than the front now. What I wanted to talk about, the car's been, I love it, but especially with this ESC, which is the Turo 160 amp, and this Hobby Wing V10 G4 rack. Let's try and get it in shot. There. Where that steering arm bolted onto the rack made this arm very uphill and downhill. So what I've done is I've cut a servo, drilled a servo arm, so that the ball would fit through it, the thread of the ball would fit through it. And that's like I suppose maybe it's 2 mil. And I wouldn't want it to be any thicker, because there ain't enough thread on the pillar ball, if you like, unless I change the pillar balls out for something else. But I do like these rod ends and the balls. I think they're really good. So I've put a packer under that one, and that's putting the steering arm downwards, and a packer under the outer one, which is lifting it upwards. As you can see, if you imagine I'm accelerating, the arm comes up and makes it toe out a bit, yeah, which I don't really want. But when I hadn't fitted them bits, it was towing out a lot. And what I found with the car was, and I don't think the rear diff helped, is when it was equal front to rear, or at least it felt equal, you go into the corner, it didn't want to turn in. And you'd wait for a bit and give it a bit of throttle and get the back to step out a little bit. And what it was doing is it would step out, and quite often the back would spin right out and it'd catch you off guard. So right, thinner diff oil. But at the same time, this is my way of thinking, is if you've come into the corner and you've come off the throttle, the front end dives a bit, not too much, you're not going on the brakes harsh or anything, it dives a bit, yeah, right? All right, you could say you want it to toe out, which is what I did want it to do. I wanted it to toe out, but I mean, it's only just making that downhill, which would make it toe out a fraction. And then when I go on the throttle, so that's what was happening. I was going into the corner, it wouldn't turn in, because it was coming to the point where these wheels were nearly straight, right? Because of the ride height. And this is what you got to bear in mind. When you do this, you've got to set this bit up. I'm not saying I'm right. So you come off the throttle into a corner and you turn in. Ideally, yes, you'd want it to do that, which would make the wheel toe out. Can you see it sort of going out there? It's cambering in and toeing out fractionally, right? So it wasn't doing that. What it was doing is it was pushing this until it was nearly level. And then as soon as you accelerated, it was toeing out massively. So you'd come into the corner, it wouldn't turn in, because the tracking was nearly straight. And all right, you could say, all right, toe it out then. But that would then mean that when you accelerated down the straight, the indifference when it was down when you went off the throttle was close to the wheels being settled. But when you accelerated, it then brought them right up at an angle. You imagine at the minute I've got a washer there trying to level that out, but it's still getting quite an angle there. It's getting more than what I do there when I come off the throttle. So, hi there. So under acceleration, it was getting too much toe out. So you'd go in, no steering in, give it a bit of throttle to make the back step out, and then you'd go on the gas, which was lifting the front, towing it out, and say you were still on the steering, it was spinning the car out. That is my theory. So what I'm trying to do is give it toe out when I'm off the throttle quite a bit, this is definitely improvement anyway, going that way with the spacer under this side and under that side. So you're literally getting the rod and you're leveling it. So it's non-level when you come off the throttle. I'm getting a fraction of toe out there. You can see that rod's, there you go, it's uphill on the inside, come off the throttle and it's level. Yeah, so my steering settled. Ideally it could do with being better, because when I come up it'll start to toe out, but it's a lot better now than what it was, sorry. So that's what I've done, and I think, because that out, and then under acceleration, which he was using the acceleration to pop the back round and get around the corner and then go on the gas even more, and sometimes it'll catch you off guard. So I think that's what I've done anyway. I love this setup because you've got more options with the gearing. Not only can you fit a lot more different pinions, but you've got 2 different size spurs that are both bigger than the stock one. It is a tight squeeze. With a low profile servo, I could have got the shaft straight. What else did I do? The front drive shaft is one of the rear ones, which is a full length one out of the buggy. But the front one I had to cut down, and I actually managed, once you've cleaned the black off the drive shaft and you've cut it, I've actually used copper brake pipe off a real car and I've soldered it on. But you clean, obviously you'll want 2 halves of drive shaft that are the same length, so the cut's in the middle and it's at the right length. Clean the black off. I filed a little flat on it on both pieces of drive shaft, and I'd done the flat. I lined these up, basically they're CVD, so it shouldn't really matter, but the pin in the CVD joint I lined up with the dog bone pin, so they were both, say, upright. And then I put the flat on the shafts in the same place, and I drilled the copper tube down through so you could see the flats, and I melted solder in there to pick up the flat spots. But also either end of the copper I drilled into the copper tube, so that when I heated the solder up it would drop down in alongside the drive shaft easier. Not ideal because the copper tube was a little bit bigger diameter, maybe like 0.5 millimetre, but it was enough for it not to be quite right. When I soldered it up, this was an old bit of brake pipe, by the way, so it weren't that straight. I noticed the shaft was not straight, so I just run it round in the vise, squashing it until it was all even. I've run it, it's been perfect, so you can make it at home with a soldering iron and a hacksaw. Brilliant, absolutely love it. I mean, all the other ones I've done, they've been in more powerful cars, so it would have been, well, it would have been worth trying it, but I used, unfortunately, a stick welder, which... and the mud guards, I've put them inner arches in it, stop the gravel trying to come up in here, and I haven't had any since. So, and I mean, it almost instantly got gravel in it when I took it out on the road. Instantly, within like up and if you went up the road and come back, it almost got gravel in it almost straight away. So it's not now, and I've just adjusted the steering. So next test will be see what it's like. I mean, I do feel the front's still a bit, the ride height's maybe a bit high, so I could back the springs off and make it drop more when you come off the throttle, which will give me more toe out, which could be a good thing. But the main thing was to make it so the wheels didn't toe out so much under acceleration, because you're going on the gas to leave the corner, and the car was just going, you suddenly got loads of activity on your steering, so you had to be like really gentle, whereas you want to be able to just flow out of the corner and let the throttle do most of the work and not have the steering hamper you. That's my outlook anyway. But there you go, little update on the Ptg2r. There you go. Anyway, I'll leave that with you guys. I'm going to shoot off, if I even know how to get off of the live. Anyway, that's how it's going. I've got to go and test it. Maybe I'll give you a little update on here. Or try and get some video footage. I'll let you know how it's gone. But it surprised me, these steering arms being where they were. I feel that was the understeer, oversteer problem. A lot of people said they were having trouble, moaning about steering lock. Obviously, I've done that as well. Basically, the screws down in there. I just got a drill. You've got to be really careful, because otherwise the drill catches, it'll pull right through the gearbox. But I just sort of countersunk that gearbox lid there and put some countersunk screws in it. Now these miss. You don't gain a lot, maybe a couple of mil maximum extra steering, because you're limited by how far the CVD can actually turn.